By the time Nora Wren learned the job advertisement was a forgery, she had already crossed 10 miles of burned Kansas grass to answer it. Paper rustle. The notice promised work on an isolated ranch. Cook needed room and board. Widower with 1 child. Apply at Briar Creek. But the widower had never posted it. The printer had never spoken to him. And the person who paid for the line in the paper was 6 years old. Her payment was a silver thimble stolen from her dead mother's sewing box. Her instructions came from a letter hidden behind her mother's grave. Nora thought she had come to boil coffee and bake bread. She had been chosen to mend a family that had forgotten how to live. The train left her at Hays City in a storm of cinders and yellow dust. Nora stepped down with 1 carpetbag, 1 black glove with a split at the thumb, and a newspaper clipping folded inside her Bible because paper seemed safer there than money. She was 28 years old, though hunger and disappointment had made her look older when the light hit her wrong. 3 months earlier, she had owned a rented room over a laundry in Wichita, 2 good dresses, and a small list of women who trusted her to take in sewing. Then a fire took the laundry. The owner blamed her. The women stopped coming, and the landlord put her trunk on the back steps with all the tenderness of a man setting out spoiled meat. So when Nora found the advertisement buried near the bottom of the Hays City ledger, she circled it so hard the pencil tore through the page. An isolated ranch sounded dangerous. A widower sounded complicated. Room and board sounded like survival. That was enough. She walked into the newspaper office first, because there was one detail that troubled her. The notice said apply at Briar Creek, but it gave no name, no pay, no hours, and no man in his right mind hired a cook through 5 lines of smudged ink. The printer sat with his sleeves rolled up, wiping ink from the press with a rag. Nora laid the clipping on the counter. I came about this position. He squinted at it. Then his face changed. Not much, just enough. Where did you get that? In your paper. That was in the ledger. It has your masthead above it. He picked up the clipping and turned it over as if a different answer might be printed on the back. Ma'am, I don't remember setting this. Nora's throat tightened. Then who did? The printer rubbed his jaw. A child came in last week. Little thing. Pale braids. Said her father needed help. I thought she was running an errand. A child paid you? He opened the drawer, took out a silver thimble, and set it beside the clipping. Paid with this. Said it was real silver. It was. Nora stared at the thimble. "8, maybe 10 miles north by the dry wash, Silas Ward's place. Is he expecting me?" The printer looked at the clipping again. I don't know that Silas Ward expects anyone anymore. Nora thanked him, tucked the clipping back into her Bible, and found a freight driver willing to take her as far as the North Road. The man talked too much. Most men did when they thought silence belonged to them. He told her Briar Creek used to be a good spread before fever took Mrs. Ward. He told her Silas had not been the same since. He told her the little girl, Lottie, had a way of standing in doorways without making a sound. Folks say that house still keeps company with the dead, he said, chewing tobacco like the words tasted sweet. Nora looked out at the grass. Folks say many things. Do you believe in ghosts? I believe in unpaid rent. He laughed at that, but Nora did not. Toward evening, the ranch appeared low against the prairie. A weathered house, a leaning barn, a windmill that turned as if each rotation cost it pain. Briar Creek did not look haunted. It looked tired. That was worse. The driver left her by the gate and flicked the reins before she could change her mind. Nora walked up the path alone. No lamp burned in the window. No dog barked. On the porch, a child's chair rocked slightly in the wind, though there was no child in it. She knocked once, twice. The door opened on a man tall enough to darken the frame. Silas Ward had a rancher's hands, broad, scarred, and work. Reddened. His hair was black at the roots and sun, browned at the ends. His face might have been handsome once, before grief pulled every line downward and left it there. His eyes went to her carpetbag, then to her face. "You lost?" Nora took out the clipping. "I came for the cook's position." Silas did not take it. What cook's position? There it was, the world tipping. Nora held the paper higher, as if proof could force reality to behave. This advertisement. He read it without touching it. His mouth hardened. "I placed no advertisement." "I was told your daughter did." His expression changed so quickly Nora almost missed it. Anger, fear, then something more exhausted than either. Lottie. The name came from somewhere inside the house, not called, whispered. A small girl stood halfway down the stairs. One hand on the rail, pale hair braided over one shoulder. She wore a blue dress with a mended sleeve and watched Nora with the stillness of a child who had learned that sudden movement broke things. Silas looked at her. "Did you put an advertisement in the paper?" Lottie did not answer him. She looked at Nora and smiled. Not happily, secretly. "She came," Lottie said. Silas closed his eyes. Nora should have turned around. She should have walked back through the dust, slept in a stable, and gone anywhere else. Instead, she looked past Silas into the dim house and smelled cold ashes, stale linen, and the loneliness of rooms no one had opened properly in 2 years. "I can leave," she said. Maybe he saw the split glove. Maybe he saw the hunger. Maybe he saw a woman too proud to beg and too tired to pretend she was not desperate. "I need help," he said quietly. "But I don't hire strangers because my child tricks a printer. Then don't hire me because of her." Nora lifted her chin. "Hire me because I can cook, scrub, sew, keep accounts, mend shirts, preserve vegetables, dress a chicken, and get up before dawn without complaint." Silas stared. From the stairs, Lottie's smile widened. $10 a month, he said. "Room board. Sundays half free if there isn't work that cannot wait." 15, his brows rose. "You bargain hard for a woman with no position. And you bargain poorly for a man with no cook." For one breath, the house went silent. Then Silas gave the smallest sound. Not a laugh, the memory of one. 15, he said. "For 1 month. After that, we decide." Nora stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a sound like a lock. Her room was small, clean, and bare, with a narrow bed and a washstand under the window. Someone had placed a sprig of dried lavender on the pillow. Nora touched it. It crumbled between her fingers. She had nowhere else to go. A board creaked outside her door. Nora turned. Lottie stood in the hall with the silver thimble in her palm, the same one from the printer's office. Nora rose slowly. "That belongs to you." "It was Mama's. You paid for the advertisement with it." Mr. Crowley said if Papa was angry, he would give it back. Underneath, he is sad. Lottie stepped closer and offered the thimble. Nora did not take it. "Why did you do this?" Because Mama said I would know when I found the right one. The right cook. Lottie's gaze did not move. The right woman. Pause. Nora felt the air leave her lungs. Lottie, I don't know what you think I am, but I came here for work. I know. I am not here to replace anyone. I know that too. Then what do you want from me? The little girl looked past her, toward the window where the prairie was going blue with dusk. I want Papa to stop living like Mama died yesterday. Then she put the thimble on the washstand and walked away. That night, Nora lay awake under a thin quilt, listening to the house. Old houses spoke in little panes. A beam settled. A shutter tapped. Wind pressed fingers under the eaves. But once, deep in the dark, Nora heard a music box play 3 trembling notes. Soft music box? Then it stopped. The next morning she found the kitchen before sunrise and nearly wept with gratitude at the sight of a cast iron stove. A stove was honest. A stove did not ask what you had lost. It did not care where you came from, only whether you knew how to coax heat from wood and patience. Nora made biscuits, fried salt pork, boiled coffee, and found apples soft enough for a skillet. By dawn, the table held more food than Briar Creek had seen at breakfast in months. Silas came in first, hat in hand, damp hair curling at his temples from the cold well water. Lottie climbed into a chair and watched Nora as if the eggs were less interesting than the woman who made them. Silas took one bite of biscuit. His face changed again. Not much, but enough. These are good. Nora poured coffee. But Lottie whispered, Mama said things like that. Silas pushed back from the table. Lottie. The warning in his voice made the child shrink. Nora set the coffee pot down. She didn't mean harm. Silas stood. This house has had enough talk of dead women before breakfast. The door slammed. Door slam. Lottie stared at her plate. Nora sat across from her. Did your mother really say that? No, I made it up. Why? To see if you would stay when Papa got sharp? And, Lottie looked at the door. You stayed. That became the first test. There were many. Lottie watched whether Nora wasted flour, whether she spoke kindly to the mule, whether she locked the pantry, whether she sang while working, whether she touched the framed photograph on the mantel, or dusted around it like the other women had. The photograph showed Silas younger, less guarded, standing beside a woman with clever eyes and dark hair. The woman held a baby wrapped in a blanket. Marion Ward. That was the name written on the back in a hand so graceful it looked like thread. Nora learned the rest in pieces. Marion had died of fever 2 winters earlier. The doctor had come too late. Silas had built a fence around his grief and moved inside it. 4 women had come to keep house since then. One lasted 8 days. One made it 17. One told the town the child was touched. The last one left before sunrise and forgot her shoes in the mudroom. Why did they leave? Nora asked Lottie one afternoon while rolling dough. Because they wanted the house to be easy. No house is easy. This one is less easy than most. Nora looked at the child. Did you scare them? Only the ones who were already scared. On the 7th day, Nora discovered the blue tin. It happened because rain came hard from the north and turned the yard to black mud. Silas was in the barn fighting a leak in the roof. Lottie had been sent to bring towels and did not return. Nora found her behind the house, kneeling beside a flat stone under the cottonwood tree. Rain plastered the girl's hair to her face. In her hands was a dented blue recipe tin. "Lottie!" The child jumped and tried to hide the tin under her shawl. Nora crossed the yard, boots sinking. "What are you doing out here?" I had to ask her. "Ask who?" Lottie looked at the stone. Nora read the carved name, Marion Ellis Ward. Beloved wife, beloved mother. Pause. The rain seemed suddenly louder. "Not until you read one." "You read what?" Lottie opened the tin. Inside were letters tied with blue thread, each sealed in wax. Some were marked with dates, some with instructions. One envelope, damp at the edge, had Nora's breath catching before she even touched it. "For the woman Lottie chooses." Nora stepped back. "No. Please. That is not mine. Mama said it would be. Your mother did not know me. She knew me." The words were so simple, Nora had no answer for them. Lottie held out the envelope. The rain ran down her small wrist. Nora took it because refusing felt crueler than trespass. Inside, the paper smelled faintly of lavender and old smoke. The letter began with no greeting. "If my daughter has placed this in your hands, then she has decided something about you that I am no longer here to test. I am sorry for that. She is 6 now, or near enough, and already too certain for her own safety. She believes people can be chosen the way thread is chosen for cloth. She believes the right color can mend the torn place. I told her life is not so obedient. She did not believe me." Nora stopped. Her hand trembled. Lottie watched her with rain on her eyelashes. Nora read on. "If you came here for wages, you have every right to leave with them. If you came because you had nowhere else, I understand that better than you know. But if you can see my daughter without fearing the strangeness grief has carved into her, and if you can see my husband without mistaking his silence for cruelty, then I ask only this. Do not let this house stay closed forever. Do not replace me. No woman should be asked to become a ghost. Be yourself. If you stay, stay as a living woman. Teach them how to live beside what they lost. And if you cannot stay, leave kindly, so my child does not learn that every door closes in anger. With hope I have no right to place on you, Marion Ward." Nora lowered the letter. The rain had soaked through her collar. For a long moment, she could not speak. Finally, she whispered, "How long have you had them?" "Since the day we buried her. She told me where the tin was. She said not to show Papa until he was ready." "Is he ready?" Lottie's mouth trembled. "No." Nora folded the letter carefully. "Lottie, your mother loved you, but love can still ask too much. I know. Choosing a person is not the same as keeping them. I know that too. Do you?" The girl looked older than 6 when she answered. "I chose the others wrong." Nora's heart, not because the child was strange, because she had been made responsible for hope. Nora put the letter back in the tin and took Lottie's cold hand. Inside now. Silas found them in the kitchen an hour later, both wrapped in blankets, both silent. He saw the blue tin on the table. His face went white. "Where did that come from?" Lottie rose. "Papa, Where did you get it? The child shrank back. Nora stood between them without meaning to. From the grave. Silas looked at Nora as if she had struck him. You took my daughter digging at her mother's grave? No. Then what happened? Lottie began to cry. And that stopped him more effectively than a shout. Silas crossed the room, dropped to one knee, and reached for her. She did not go to him. She went to Nora. The hurt that crossed his face was sharp enough to cut. Nora felt it. Lottie felt it too. That was the cruelty of grief. Everyone bled, and no one knew whose wound to cover first. Silas picked up the tin. His hand shook. Did you read them? One, Nora said. Get out of my wife's things. Nora's pride rose like a match. Gladly. But your daughter is not a thing to be left alone with letters because the living adults are afraid to speak. Silas stepped closer. You have been here a week. Long enough to know this house is starving. His face hardened. Pack your bag, Lottie screamed. No. The sound stopped both of them. She threw herself at Silas, fists beating his coat. You always do this. You make everyone leave, and then you say they left you. After a long time, Silas wrapped his arms around his daughter. His eyes lifted to Nora over the child's head. The anger had not gone, but something else had entered with it. Fear, the kind that asks for help without knowing the words. Nora did not pack. Silas did not apologize. Not then, but at supper he sat at the table instead of taking his plate to the porch. Lottie ate between them. The blue tin stayed on the shelf above the stove. No one touched it. For 2 weeks, Briar Creek learned a new rhythm. Nora opened curtains that had been closed since Marion died. She boiled sheets with lye. She moved the photograph from the mantel to the kitchen shelf, where Marion's face could be part of daily life instead of a shrine. No one dared approach, Silas noticed. He did not object. He brought in wood before she asked. He mended the pump handle. He began leaving his muddy boots outside. These were not declarations, they were stitches. Small, tight. Almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Lottie bloomed under attention. She helped knead bread, shelled peas, and read from her primer at the kitchen table while Nora corrected her letters. She still visited the grave, but less often. One evening, Nora found Silas outside the barn, watching Lottie chase moths near the porch lamp. She laughs more, he said. Nora folded her arms against the cold. Children do that when they stop holding up the roof. Silas looked at her. You think I put too much on her? I think grief did. You just let it. He flinched, but did not turn away. Catherine. He stopped himself. Nora waited. Marion used to say I had the tenderness of a locked gate. Did she say it kindly? Mostly. Then perhaps unlock it. A faint smile touched his mouth. I suppose you have instructions for that too. No, but I have oil for hinges. This time he laughed. A real laugh. Short, rusty, beautiful. The sound startled Lottie so badly she turned around and stared. Then she laughed too, and the house, watching from behind them, seemed to breathe out. The trouble arrived in a green carriage with polished brass lamps. Cora Bellamy stepped down as if the mud had been placed there to offend her. She owned half the mercantile in Hayes City and behaved as if the other half was simply waiting to surrender. She wore gloves even in warm weather and smiled with all her teeth. Silas saw her from the barn and swore under his breath. Nora heard it from the porch. Cora lifted a basket. Silas, I brought preserves. And some cloth for Lottie. It is difficult to raise a girl properly without a woman's eye. Nora felt Lottie press against her skirt. Silas accepted the basket because courtesy had trapped many better people than him. Cora. Her gaze slid to Nora. And this must be the new housekeeper. Nora Wren, Nora said. Cora Bellamy. The women looked at each other and understood too much too quickly. Cora entered the house uninvited. She inspected the kitchen, the clean curtains, the bread cooling under cloth. Marion's photograph on the shelf. Her eyes narrowed at that. How domestic. It is a kitchen, Nora said. They tend to be. Cora's smile tightened. I hope you know your place here, Miss Wren. Nora lifted the iron kettle from the stove. At the moment, beside very hot water. Lottie giggled. Cora did not. Outside, she spoke to Silas long enough that Nora saw his shoulders stiffen from the window when she left. Lottie whispered, "She wants Papa to marry her." Nora set the kettle down too hard. "That is your father's business." She would throw Mama's letters in the stove. "You don't know that." "I do, how?" "Because she told me Mama's dead things are why Papa cannot move on." Nora looked toward the road where the green carriage was shrinking into dust. For the first time, she felt something hotter than dislike. Not jealousy. Not exactly. A protectiveness so sudden it frightened her. That night, Silas lingered after supper. Cora thinks Lottie should be sent to school in town. That may not be wrong. She also thinks a woman with standing should manage the house. Nora wiped the table. Also not surprising. Silas watched her. Is Cora one? Nora looked up. Does it matter? It does to me. The room changed. Lottie was upstairs. The stove clicked softly as it cooled. Nora felt the old instinct to step back, to turn sharp before someone else could cut first. "You pay me $15 a month," she said. Silas's face closed. "Right, I mean, no, I understand." He took his hat and left. Nora hated herself before the door shut. Later, she found him in the barn, brushing the bay mare with more force than necessary. "I said that badly." Sounded clear enough. It was cowardly. That made him stop. Nora took one step inside. "I am not afraid of Cora Bellamy. I am afraid that Lottie has decided I am a woman from a letter. And you have decided I am useful. And I have decided nothing, because deciding makes loss possible." Nora thence the stalled. "I think you know it so well you built a life around not deciding." The words hung between them. Not cruel. True. He looked toward the house. "I loved my wife. I know. I still do. I know that too." Silas's voice lowered. "Then why does it feel like betrayal when I look at you and want you to stay?" Nora could not answer, because the same question had been working in her chest for days. Maybe love was not one lamp going out before another could be lit. Maybe it was a room large enough for memory and hunger and fear and a new voice saying, "I am here." But she did not say that. She only said, "I am not Marion." Silas came closer. "I know. I cannot be. I don't want you to be." His hand lifted, stopped, then fell. That restraint moved her more than touch would have. "I want you to stay because the house is different when you are in it," he said. "Lottie is different. I am." He looked away. "I am less dead." Nora's eyes stung. I don't know how to stay. Neither do I. Then we may do it badly. Most true things start badly. She laughed once unsteadily. Silas smiled, and the locked gate in him opened just enough for light. They did not kiss that night. They stood in the barn with a horse breathing softly beside them, and it felt more intimate than a kiss because neither one ran. Cora returned 3 days later. This time, she brought witnesses. A county clerk named Mr. Ashby, a school matron from town, and a minister with a notebook he never opened but kept visible in his hand, like a weapon disguised as paper. Silas's face went cold when he saw them. Cora folded her gloved hands. There are concerns about Lottie's welfare. Nora felt the child stiffen beside her. What concerns? Silas asked. Isolation, said the matron. Lack of schooling, said the clerk. Emotional disturbance, said Cora, looking at Lottie. Silas stepped forward. Nora touched his sleeve. Don't give them what they came to see. They questioned Lottie on the porch. How often did she read? Did she have friends? Did her father speak of her mother? Why had she placed an advertisement without permission? The last question made her lower lip tremble. I needed help. What kind of help? The matron asked. Lottie looked at Nora. The kind that stays. Cora's eyes gleamed. They questioned Silas next. Had he hired Nora without references? Yes. Was Nora unrelated to the family? Yes. Did she sleep under the same roof? Yes. Was it proper? The question sat in the yard like a dead animal. For now. Silas turned on her. Careful. Mr. Ashby made a note. Nora saw the trap tighten. Cora had not come to prove Lottie unhappy. By afternoon, the visitors had inspected the pantry, the school books, Lottie's room, Marion's grave, and every corner of the house they could enter without shame. When they finally left, Mr. Ashby said the county board would decide whether Lottie required placement with a more suitable household while Silas corrected conditions at Briar Creek placement. The word broke him. After the carriages disappeared, Silas stood in the yard with his hat in one hand. I cannot lose her. Nora took Lottie's hand. You won't. You heard them. I heard frightened people use tidy words for cruelty. I hired you with no references. I kept her isolated. I let grief raise my child. You loved her badly because you were wounded. That is not the same as not loving her. He looked at Nora. What do we do? She knew the answer before she wanted to. It rose in her like a bell. Make the house legal. Silas frowned. What? A mother-in-law as well as in practice, a name in the records they cannot dismiss as hired help. Lottie's fingers tightened around hers. Silas went very still. Nora, marry me. The wind moved through the yard. Even the windmill seemed to pause. You do not owe us that. You cannot bind your life to mine because Cora Bellamy is cruel. I am not. Then why? Nora looked at the house, at the porch where Lottie had begun to laugh again, at the kitchen where Marion's photograph watched over bread instead of dust, at the man who had learned to bring in wood and lower his voice and stand still inside fear. Because I kept thinking I was a loose thread, she said. something left over from a torn seam. But here, somehow, I am part of the mending. Silas's eyes filled before he could hide it. I have very little to offer. You have a child who needs fighting for. A house that needs opening, a heart that is stubborn but not empty. And debts. Every own has debts. And grief. I did not come here untouched. Lottie looked from one to the other. Is that, yes? Nora laughed through tears. I asked him, not myself. Silas stepped closer. I will not use you as a shield. Good. Then choose me as a wife. The word frightened both of them, but neither looked away. Slowly, Silas reached for Nora's hand. Yes, he said. If you are sure, I am not sure of anything. They married 2 mornings later in the back room of the church at Hays City. Nora wore her dark blue dress. Silas wore a coat brushed so hard the seams shone. Lottie held Marion's silver thimble in both hands because she said somebody from her mother ought to stand witness. The minister's wife cried. The minister pretended not to when Silas placed his grandmother's plain gold ring on Nora's finger. It was slightly too large. He whispered, I'll have it fitted. Nora whispered back, let it be. I need room to grow into things. Afterward, they took the certificate straight to the county office. Mr. Ashby looked unhappy to see it. That was the first good sign. The second came 11 days later, when the board closed the complaint. Their letter said Lottie would remain with her father and stepmother. It mentioned the household's improved order, Nora's commitment, and Silas's willingness to enroll Lottie in town lessons twice a week. It did not mention Cora Bellamy. Cruelty rarely signs its own name. When Silas finished reading the decision aloud, Lottie launched herself into Nora's arms so hard they nearly fell over. We won, she sobbed. Nora held her. No, we stayed. Silas wrapped his arms around them both. For a moment, the 3 of them stood in the kitchen, surrounded by bread flour, coffee, clean curtains, and Marion's photograph. Nothing about it was neat. Nothing about it looked like the family Nora had imagined as a child. It was better than neat. It was real. The months that followed were not a fairy tale. Cora spread rumors until even she grew tired of hearing herself. Some women in town crossed the street when Nora passed. Others quietly brought school books for Lottie and recipes for winter. Silas lost 2 calves in a storm and blamed himself for both. Nora burned an entire batch of preserves and cried over the ruined sugar. Lottie hated school for 3 weeks, then loved it because she learned another girl had also lost a mother, and did not have to explain the shape of that silence. There were arguments. About money. About whether Lottie was old enough to ride alone to the creek. About whether Silas had the right to keep working after blood soaked through a bandage on his palm. There were nights when grief sat at the table like an uninvited guest. But now, someone always set another plate, and kept talking. That was the difference. One spring evening, almost a year after Nora first came to Briar Creek, Lottie asked to visit the grave. The 3 of them walked together under a sky bruised purple with sunset. The cottonwood leaves shivered above Marion's stone. Lottie carried the blue tin. This time she did not kneel like a child asking permission. She knelt like a daughter bringing news. Papa laughs now, she said softly. Not every day, but more. Silas looked away, pretending to study the horizon. "Thank you," Nora said. "And school is not as terrible as I said, and I think you can rest now." The wind moved through the grass. Nora looked at Silas. He nodded. So she read aloud. "If you are reading this together, then Lottie was right about something I could not bear to hope for. Someone stayed. Silas, forgive yourself. I was loved. That is not a small thing. Lottie, my wild little needle, do not spend your life trying to sew everyone else before you mend yourself. And you, whoever you are, thank you. Not for replacing me. For refusing to become me. Thank you for loving them in your own voice, with your own hands. In the days I could not reach, a family is not a thing death can finish. It must be, so stitch it well. Fight when you must. Laugh when you can. Leave the windows open with all my love. Marion." And Briar Creek, once locked tight around sorrow, stood behind them with its curtains open and lamplight in every window. That night, Nora placed the blue tin on the kitchen shelf beside Marion's photograph. Not hidden, not worshipped, just kept. Then she went upstairs to the room she now shared with Silas. He was already half asleep, one arm stretched across her side of the bed, reaching for her even in dreams. Nora slipped the ring from her finger and looked at it in the lamplight. Still a little loose, she put it back on. In the next room, Lottie murmured in her sleep. The house answered with one soft creak. Not haunted. Settling. There was a difference. Nora lay down beside her husband, and Silas pulled her close without waking. For years she had believed belonging was something other people inherited. A name, a table, a place held for them without asking. But belonging was not found waiting in a perfect house. It was made with bread at dawn, with apologies after anger, with a child brave enough to hope when grown people had forgotten how, with a dead woman's letters, a silver thimble, and a job advertisement that should never have existed. One stitch at a time, one choice at a time, one terrifying act of love at a time. That was how broken people made something whole. Not perfect, never perfect, but warm and breathing and real. And when morning came, Nora woke before the sun, went downstairs, opened every curtain, and set coffee on the stove for the family that had chosen her back.